Welcome everyone to the Daily Suplex's very first video blog. I am Brian Thomas, host of the Daily Suplex radio show, and today I'm going to come to you for the first time via video and YouTube and of course thedailysuplex.com. And I just wanted to introduce a new segment to the show in doing these video blogs. I think they could be a little more fun. We can get a little more off topic compared to what we do on the radio show on the website. And I could talk about some things that maybe I wouldn't talk about on the radio show because my partners, Big Luther and John, maybe haven't experienced what I'm going to talk about either. I'll use this forum for like books reviews and talk about some DVDs that I've recently watched. Maybe get a little off topic, talk about the Tennessee Titans, who played the playoffs this weekend. So who knows? But anyway, today I wanted to introduce this video blog with a couple books that I've read recently that I found very interesting, and I think that maybe some of our listeners and fans would find interesting as well. And they go together. The two books are Ring of Hell, which is kind of a story. This is a more in-depth look at Chris Benoit and what may have led to the murder-suicide situation that happened almost a year and a half ago now. It's a very good book, written, of course, Matthew Randazzo. Love to have him on the show to talk about the book. It's very good, so we'll get into that. And the second book is called Dungeon of Death, and this one's by Scott Keith, who has written a few wrestling books that are actually quite fun to read. In This Very Ring is one of them, and the other one name is escaping me at this time, but they're both very funny reads. This is a more serious look in wrestling than in what he's done in the past. This also looks at Chris Benoit, but doesn't focus on Chris Benoit completely. The first part of this book does talk about Chris Benoit and what he believes may have led to Chris Benoit doing what he did. But the other part of the book, the large majority of the book, also focuses on other wrestlers who have gone through Stampede Wrestling and come on the short end of life, whether it be by death, by murder, or drugs, or other aspects. So these are the two books I'd like to talk about this week on the video blog. And the reason is I pretty much just finished both these books recently, and I thought they were very, very well written and very good reads, and bring up some very interesting points that I think wrestling fans who were big fans of Chris Benoit and don't know how to reconcile the situation with what he did and the wrestler that they grew up watching and enjoying, like myself. It gives a good look at what may have led to some of the things they did. So both books all have a premise that how he was trained and brought up in the wrestling business led to his attitude towards other wrestlers, to maybe his attitude towards his wife, and potentially the state of mind that he was in when he committed the acts that he committed in 2007. The basis of the books are basically to talk about some of the training techniques used both in Stampede Wrestling as well as New Japan, where Chris Benoit also worked very hard on, and some of the things that they used to do to some of the wrestlers that really kind of broke them down and made them into hard people, and talking about some of the aspects of Chris Benoit and his attitude backstage towards newcomers, his training regimens, and things like that. And I think that it's very fascinating. This book here goes into more in-depth on that kind of stuff. It talks about Chris Benoit's career growing up in wrestling, and then eventually leading to the murder-suicide that did happen. So a very good read. I do highly recommend reading this if you want a good look at Chris Benoit. It isn't a very nice look at Chris Benoit, so to say. It's more of an expose on the wrestling business and Chris Benoit's training and attitude and actions behind the scenes than it is a look at his career, which is kind of unfortunate that someone hasn't put those two together, but it's understandable with the headlines that come down. So Ring of Hell by Matthew Randazzo, a highly recommended book if you want to get into some of the more detailed look at Chris Benoit's training, his upbringing in the wrestling business, and other things like that. As for Dungeon of Death, this one's a very interesting read for a couple of reasons. The first being that, yes, it does talk about Chris Benoit as well, and his training being brought up and things like that, But it also gets into a bunch of other wrestlers who have met unfortunate ends in the wrestling business too early in life, and some of the things that may have led to that. And then also, a tie back to Stu Hart and the Stampede Wrestling and his dungeon training, and how that may have played a factor in it. Whether it did or not is up to debate, and I'm sure other people who went through Stu Hart's dungeon would totally disagree that that was a cause of why it happened and things like that. But it raises very good points. Some of the wrestlers that it talks about in here, of course, obviously Chris Benoit. They talk about the tragedy of Miss Elizabeth, who has nothing really to do with Stampede Wrestling, but still died early from a drug overdose based on the lifestyle that wrestlers a lot of times fall into. It talks about the Von Erich family tragedies and how Fritz Von Erich was very much like Stu Hart in that he, raised his kids into the business and really expected them to be part of the business, and how that may have led to some of the suicides and deaths that unfortunate family has also seen. Junkyard Dog gets mentioned in here, basically not because he died because of the wrestling business per se, but because of his attitude and his lifestyle. He was addicted to many drugs and had a hard time pulling away from that, and unfortunately fell asleep at the wheel while on his way to watch his daughter graduate, and that's unfortunate too. But those are just some of the flavors in here. Road Warrior Hawk is discussed, Bobby Duncan Jr., Brian Pillman in here, Louis Spicoli, a bunch of other things. This is a very, very fun read if you want a good history on the tragedies of pro wrestling. This is a highly recommended book. Like I said, Scott Keith is more known for his comedy books on the WWF and WWE. In This Very Ring is a very fun, very good read where he picks apart some of the main storylines that were going on during the time frames of that. I believe his look was around the Attitude Era and some of the things going on in the Attitude Era, the Helmsley, McMahon storylines and things like that. So this is a more serious book from him. It's a very well-written book. I highly recommend this one as well. So if you have a chance, the two books that I talked about today, I would definitely recommend picking them up. I apologize for that. The first one, obviously, Dungeon of Death. Brand new. Got it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. So check your nearest bookstore. I'm sure Borders has it as well. Highly available there. And this one, Ring of Hell, which I haven't seen in a bookstore, so I ended up buying it off of Amazon. Another very good read, recommended as well. Well, that's going to do it for the first video blog. I hope that you enjoyed the video blog. I hope that to do a lot more with this video blog as well in the future. We'll talk about news items of the week that maybe we forgot to touch on in the radio show, or go into a little more depth on certain things that we talked about on the radio show. Do some video blogs on pay-per-views that we might have seen but didn't get to talk about on the radio show. Things like that, and any topic. If you have a topic you'd like to hear myself discuss, just send us an email at feedback@thedailysuplex.com. And with that, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video blog. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come back for more. And I encourage you to check out thedailysuplex.com for all the latest news and information. And of course, you can always listen to us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Central Time on blogtalkradio.com/thedailysuplex, or just go to blogtalkradio.com and it'll pop up when you go and look at shows that are on at 8 p.m. on Sunday nights. Till then, we'll see you in the archives.